crew cab, short box, 373 gears. It's got an automatic transfer case, all the pertinence. It doesn't have any special name, it's just my truck. So sorry if you're like, ooh, old silverback gorilla there. No. So let's get kicking. This is where the fun began, at the fuel tank. So what had happened one day we were plowing, a guy had plowing for me, said he was driving along, the truck was just like spitting and sputtering like it was running out of gas. He said he could just like touch the pedal and catch it, but it was just as if it was totally out of gas, which it was not. There was a full tank in it. So we listened, we don't really hear the fuel pump running. I checked to see if there was pressure at the rail. We didn't have any pressure at the rail, not, like none whatsoever. The thing wouldn't start. We ended up just pushing it home. I bet it was quite the sight to see. I just got behind another plow truck and pushed it 3 miles home. Just shove, let go. I'm sure it was dangerous. Tell me about it in the comments. We put a new Delphi pump in here. That's just what they had at the parts store that I use. I didn't have any reason not to believe that it wasn't a quality pump. There seemed to be a quality replacement. So we put that in and it fixed the problem, but then a couple hours into using the truck, it had like a sputter, it just kind of like was off a little bit, but you could rev the gas up and it seemed like it would clear it up, almost like the engine was flooding itself. So it was just an odd thing, and I was just like, well, maybe something else is off with it. There's a check engine light. We'll throw the check engine light. We'll throw the scan tool on it. See what happens. So I got to the point that it would run like that all the time. The only time you could get it to clear up was if you turned it off and you started it back up. You turned the truck off, start it back up, and it would run just fine and rev to the moon if you needed it to. And then about a minute or two later, it would go back to running like shit. It would never rev above 2,300 RPM, something like that. And it got to the point where you couldn't even like catch it and let it rev up kind of thing. So it ran well under 2,300 RPMs, but as soon as you hit that, it's like it's running out of gas, spitting, sputtering, backfiring. And we finally got a code. I never got a code even when the fuel pump went bad. There was still no code. No check engine light or anything. So we'll go into that next. Here she is. The cockpit, kind of like your sister's bedroom. It's just war. Anyways, we had a check engine light, which is just an orange engine symbol that comes up on the dash. That just tells you there's a code. It wasn't flashing. I don't know if these flash. I know other cars, they flash when it's like, get the fuck off the road, get this thing checked out as serious. Plugged into the OBD2 port, which is down here by your right knee, or the tip of my penis. Anyways. The code that we got on there was something about, I don't remember the code, it was like 0174, I don't know if that's right. Anyways, it was it was like the right bank or bank too lean. So, it's not getting enough fuel. So, I went on the forums, did a bit of searching, they're asking about fuel pressure, this and that. I'm wondering, is there a sensor bed that's like making it defuel? So, the next thing I do is, I go through all that. The forums there are pretty good. You got your Superduty, your heavy duty truck forums, your Ford truck forums or whatever. They don't go off on too many tangents. There's nobody, like telling somebody that truck doesn't exist. Oh, they never weighed that, kind of bullshit. Like it gets pretty to the point. People are pretty good about going through what they found and what they've done for fixes. So that led me to believe that I need to check fuel pressure and, maybe have a bad regulator and see what's going on there. So the next, we moved under the hood. Alright, got my Rhodesian fighting stick here. So first thing I did was I got my fuel pressure gauge, and right back in here is a port. It has a Schrader valve on it, a plastic cap on it, and then it's just a Schrader valve for pressure or whatever. So we got our gauge on there, and we had 30 psi idling, and then when we'd rev it up, it would drop like 28, so it was staying pretty consistent there. But under load like that, it should go up some. But when I would take the vacuum line off the fuel pressure regulator, which is right back in here, I've got big hands, I was able to just unplug this plug here, move a couple of these vacuum lines out of the way, and I was able to just use a snap ring pliers and get the snap ring off. And the fuel pressure regulator itself came out kind of hard. I had to use I have a Nipex Cobras, and I was able to grab onto that with that and kind of yank it out. But that's where it's located back there. So my fuel pressure stayed fine. It went up to 40 when you took the vacuum line off, which is a test you can do that tells you that your fuel pressure regulator is working. But an important thing to do here when you're testing this is a mistake I made, is you should be testing your fuel pressure under load. Yes, I mean, just a quick check, throw it on there, you got 30 PSI, pull the vacuum line off, you got 40 PSI, that tells you that the fuel pressure regulator is working. But just to get a real true reading of fuel pressure, it's important for it to be under load apparently, something I didn't know. Also, while reading on my forums, one thing I found out was that there's a possibility that your crash inertia switch, which can be found behind the passenger side kick panel on this truck. It just pulls out, you don't need any tools. And you just bypass it with a piece of wire. I actually just used a large yellow spade or a fork terminal, and it fit in there perfect. And then it also gave me, it was insulated, so you didn't have to worry about it banging up against anything. The truck still ran like shit even when I bypassed that. You know, I was worried that there's potential like a voltage loss going through there. But apparently that inertia switch is the last place in line where you have a break in power before it gets to the pump. So that allows you to test power there too to make sure that you have proper voltage. And when I had that spade terminal in there bypassing the inertia switch, I had full voltage running back there. So I had full voltage to the inertia switch, so then I plugged the inertia switch back in and figured out, once I had it unplugged, I knew which pin power was coming from, which one it's getting sent to. So the one that it's getting sent to, I took power reading off that, and I had the full like 12 volts, or it was like 13 volts I think when it was running, something like that. So we weren't losing any power through this inertia switch. This truck apparently doesn't have a serviceable relay necessarily on them. You would think there would be one just in the fuse block, but apparently there isn't. My research has netted me, maybe somebody can correct me on this, but like it's apparently soldered directly into the PCM or something like that, or a BCM powertrain, which one, you know, power control module or something in the body control module. But it's soldered in there, and it is, I guess, if you take it apart, you can unsolder it, you can put a new one in. There's also a way of bypassing it. You can, you know, just add some wires there and just add a serviceable relay to it. But being that we had the full voltage running to the ignition, to the inertia switch, it didn't seem like we were losing any voltage through a relay. You know, we had a bad relay that was clicking on and off. You couldn't hear anything clicking on and off. The power was consistent. So I see, and then I checked back at the pump as well, pulled the plug off, checked there. We had full power to the pump. I tested for a ground, and we had a good ground, so the pump was getting full power, which should have been a clue there or whatever that something else was going on with that pump. But to me, the pressure at the fuel line, at the fuel rail seemed okay yet, so I don't know what was going on there. But then again, it wasn't, I never had the fuel gauge on it when it was spitting and sputtering, and I think that's where I made a mistake early in the diagnostic, where if I would have I read somebody say, you take that thing and you zip tie it to you take the gauge and you zip tie it to your windshield wiper blade and you go down the road under load, and then when it's spitting and sputtering, I bet I would have seen that my fuel pressure had dropped. But so after I found I had full power going to my pump, and we had what I thought was proper pressure at the rail, I went ahead and took it to the guy downtown, and he has a nice snap-on scan tool. We put it on there, looking at it, and we had a dead O2 sensor. It was reading no millivolts at all. It wasn't doing anything. Also, he thought that the reading on the mass airflow sensor was off a little bit. We unplugged it. The truck stumbled, but it eventually recovered, so it was still working, but he thought the reading was off on it, so we put a new one of those on. Just got to throw parts at it at this point. That didn't fix the problem. We put new O2 sensors. I put new O2 sensors in it. I got lucky. Somehow they come out. I took the upstream ones. I kept getting asked about the downstream ones after the cat, and I don't see those on this. I don't know what's going on if I have like a certain odd truck here or whatever, but the upstream ones are all that matters anyways. So we replaced both of those, and it actually did run better, but it still would stumble. So those clearly needed to be replaced. All that stuff clearly could have used a service. The truck has 250,000 miles on it. So replaced the O2 sensors, Still a problem. Followed that up by finally replacing the fuel pressure regulator, because maybe there's something going goofy, you know, like, who knows, you know, I didn't know. I checked for vacuum leaks. I used the whole carb clean trick or whatever, sprayed it everywhere, trying to find a, you know, waiting for the engine to surge or something like that, and it didn't. I couldn't find any cracks. There's a lot of places, the forums will point out, like there's elbows, PVC elbows and stuff like that off the back. You can even have a leaky valve cover where it sucks vacuum out of that apparently can create a vacuum leak that'll make it run like crap. But the way it was defueling, it was just, to me, it was a sensor or something, you know, that we had just replaced the fuel pump with. So, new fuel pressure regulator, still runs like shit. Screw it. I call my parts guy, ask him about the warranty. He said, well, you know, if it's defective, it's defective. They sent me a new fuel pump. I put it in. Problem solved. So, long story short, brand new parts do fail, which is, you know, not out of the realm. You know, it happens. So, when we were looking on the Snap-on scan tool, we'd also noticed that on there it will tell you like what other mechanics or something like that, or what the typical fix is for this, and overwhelmingly it was a new fuel pump, but it had a new fuel pump. So it was kind of odd. You know, and when I put the new fuel pump in, I cleaned the tank out. I managed to get all the gas out of the tank, and actually it sat out for a day, so we let it dry. And then I took a vacuum, a shot back to it. I vacuumed anything that was out of it. There's actually a couple of chunks of shit in there. Maybe it's what took out the first pump, I don't know. But we cleaned all that out. So we had a nice clean tank, put fresh clean fuel in it, you know, that we know, you know, you never know what you're getting at a pump. It's usually pretty reliable. I've never personally actually had a problem buying bad gas from the local gas stations. Like, and I buy a lot of fuel, a lot of gas, and I've never had an issue. I've never had to like do any sort of issue with having water in the fuel or shit in the fuel. So yeah, long story short, if you're not getting